I am sighing because we've been 2 years in this pandemic. And I don't know about you, but I've been feeling burnt out. Or maybe you have felt burnt out. And on top of it all, you probably lost a loved one. And that's what happened to me. I lost my grandma March 2021. Her name's Mamang, and that's how you say grandma in Ilocano. And Mamang was my third parent. She watched over me and my brothers while my parents worked. It's that immigrant story. And legacy maker, if you've ever lost someone like me, when they transition from this world, I'm sure you felt this. They actually help you realign and rethink what's really important in life. And in this episode, I'm joined by one of my Color Your Dreams Inner Circle clients, Tricia. And Tricia is an online curator and coach for highly sensitive people. We get real and vulnerable in this episode, where we share our experiences with grief. Tricia actually lost her dad at the end of 2021. And we also talk about burnout, life transitions, and how life has seasons. We can't always be in summer. I know that seems like the goal where it's always summer, it's always raining, but we can't always be in summer. So get ready for us to be real and let's drop the beat. Hey, Legacy Maker, it's Elaine Lou Cardis, business and career coach for women of color and allies, and your host for the Color Your Dreams podcast. So you most likely have a successful career you've built, right? A great career or business, but what you've built may no longer feel aligned. And in the Color Your Dreams podcast, I'm here, as well as my guest, to support women of color and allies like you to purposely pivot their business and career while collectively creating a sustainable and equitable future. We'll have real talk on the deep inner work to create lasting transformation and the tactical strategies to create a sustainable business and career while truly enjoying your life. We both know you have a vision, roots you're proud of, and a legacy to create. Now it's time to do things your own way, on your own terms. So let's get started. Go grab your coffee, tea, and/or boba, and let's call your dreams to create your legacy. Hey, Legacy Makers. I have a special guest. Her name is Tricia, and she is an amazing mother to another girl named Elaine, or also known as Lainey. So she's kind of like my favorite of all of my clients' kids. But Tricia is also an online creator, coach of sensitives, creators, and also one of my inner circle clients. And what I appreciate about Tricia, since we've been working together, I think since for the past 6 months, is how genuine, honest, vulnerable she is, not just to me, but her own clients. But it's that vulnerability where she just reminds us to be human. Tricia, anything else you want to share about yourself before we delve in?
Oh, that made me feel so good. Thank you, Elaine. I love working with you. Yeah, I specifically tend to work with and create for sensitives. So I'm a highly sensitive person, and I kind of work with fellow sensitives to figure out like where we want to go in life. You know, I feel like we tend to fall into a lot of people pleasing and wanting to make everyone else around us happy, and can't figure out where we actually want to go or allow ourselves even picture where we would like to go, and then we end up getting stuck in that perfectionism and can't actually take the steps to get there. And so that's what I try to do in my writing and in my podcast and in my coaching, is help fellow sensitives like create and own their story. And so, yeah. And I've learned so much from you in that.
And we had a different topic that we wanted to do for this episode, but then we started talking about like the real stuff. I'm like, oh no, we need to talk about this stuff where both of us have experience. So we want to talk about burnout and grief and building an aligned business to where you're at, to what season you're at. I mean, Tricia and I have shared this, like sometimes you just have seasons. You can't be summer all the time. Maybe you're just in fall and winter, and it's there because there's growth and healing you have to do. So, Tricia, let's talk about burnout. I mean, I think these past 2 years has been a lot for everybody, right? There's the collective trauma of the pandemic, being isolated, not seeing people, because as human beings, you're meant to be social, and then our own personal things. So, Tricia, what do you want to share that you went through? And I'm happy to share what I personally went through as well these past 2 years and how we're managing and dealing with burnout.
Oh, yeah. It's been an interesting few years. What a time to be alive. Yeah. So I kind of, my business kind of became its own thing at the beginning of the pandemic. And so the start of the pandemic was actually kind of nice for me because I was able to move into consulting and everybody was moving their businesses online and needed help. And so I was able to really like grow my business during the beginning of the pandemic. But then so November of 2020, we learned that my dad was diagnosed with ALS, and my, whole life and whole world shifted and changed. And we immediately packed up and went to Texas to stay with my parents and help them. And basically I went and lived with my parents and kept my business running while caring for my dad. And he passed away at the end of January. So it was very, very quick, especially for ALS. And then, and so my whole mindset and world shifted again. And I came back to LA and kind of took a deep look at my life and was like, I can't keep going in the way that I'm going. I was 34 at the time and my dad was 64 when he passed away. And I was like, if I have 30 more years in my life, do I want to stay in this life? And specifically, do I want to stay in this marriage? And I had been, we had been struggling in our marriage we've been in kind of intensive counseling and struggling for the last 2 years. And it kind of took finally my dad passing away for me to be like, life is too short. Life is too short for me to keep giving up myself. And so, so we separated that summer and I moved into my own place and have learned now like how to navigate life as a single parent and keeping my business running through all of that and all of that, on top of the pandemic, which, it's no biggie and all of the crazy news happening in the world. And there's been some other losses and things that aren't really my story to tell, but things that I've been peripheral to and been struggling with also. And it's been a lot. It's been a lot these last few years. And I just shared with you before we got started that I kind of learned in therapy a few weeks ago that I was burned out. And that burnout is years long. It's not just like, oh, I was burned out for a week and I took a few days vacation and now I'm better. It's like real true burnout is years. And I feel like I burned out with everything with my dad and have been kind of struggling to get back into any sort of normalcy. It's a long story.
Well, in relatable terms, and you know what, I'm so grateful because I've been wanting to talk about grief, and not just grief when someone passes, but grief when you're changing something in your life because you're also grieving who you were. So thank you for allowing me to manifest this conversation because 2020 was actually a really great year for me in business. I doubled. But I also kind of felt like this superhero, like, okay, I used to do in-person events every month. Like, now let's do it virtually. And then I did it twice a month. Like, I did a lot. Like, I think I was like fuming on the high energy of like, let me be there for other people and hold space. And then March of 2021 happened and my own grandmother passed away. And similar to you with that transition, I really looked at like hard on myself. Okay, what is not aligned? Like, I don't want to keep doing these events so much. Also, I'm not in my 20s anymore. One, And then two, even learning that she had her own business, but she couldn't continue doing it because my grandpa passed away and she had to take care as a single mother, taking care of 6 kids, which I know you relate to that because you have one kid, she had 6 kids to take care of. And she started having mental episodes. So mental health is really important to me because I know that's genetically in my life and I want to do preventive measures. But it really took a hard thing for me to look at, okay, what's aligned and not aligned in my business? And also giving yourself time and grace to grieve. Grief hits you, man. Like, I mean, Mother's
It's
Day just
exhausting.
happened when this passed. And I was like, oh, I was just thinking about my grandma. I know with your dad, Father's Day is gonna come. That it's a lot. I don't know if you saw, I forgot which company it was. I think it was Blue Bottle. They sent an email, hey, it's Mother's Day. I know it could be really hard for people who have lost someone. If you don't want emails about holidays because it triggers you, let us know. You could opt out and you could continue being in our emails. It's like,
Mm.
oh,
Oh, I
how
love
culturally
that.
sensitive, because it is triggering. Like your first holiday without a loved one, it's hard. Um,
It's so hard.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
so how did you deal with the grief of your dad? I mean, what tips and advice would you have for others? Because I also noticed a lot of people lost folks, whether it was with COVID or not COVID. My grandma did not pass away from COVID. It was her age, but still, it's a death. But how did you deal with it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, so I think for me, one of the biggest things was kind of what you were saying, but like rethinking my business completely. And I think that in, you know, previous life before pre-COVID, we had all these ideas of what productivity should be and how quickly our businesses should move and grow. And I think that, yeah, that was me for sure. I was constantly pushing and creating new things. And once the grief hit, I was like, nice to haves are out the window right now. Like I am focusing just on what's important. And like, I mean, that was in my business and in my life. Like I can't spend time like fretting about AT&T and phone bills or like, things like you still have to like continue your life and like paying your bills, but like allowing those little stresses to come in or to kind of be like, oh, like all these other people are launching memberships and I should have a membership. Or I was going to launch a podcast this year and you're like, that's not going to happen now. Like I was ready to launch my podcast back when everything was happening with my dad. And then it was like, it didn't happen again for a year and a half. And while that kind of felt like a failure at the time, it's like that was the absolute best thing that I could have done. Like there's no way that I could have been who I wanted to be within my podcast at that time. And I think that that's the same thing as like leaning. And so we were talking about this about like seasons of life. And I think that grief you have to allow to be a season. And you have to know that it's going to be a transition time. Things are going to change. You're going to change. And I think that getting rid of the shame of not being the person that you were before or able to do the things that you were able to do before and like letting that go and starting to embrace the new person you are and leaning into what your grief is teaching you and what, if you lost somebody, what that person is teaching you and could have taught you. And yeah, letting it be a season of just being and not growing. You don't need to grow during that time. You don't need to create. You don't need to thrive. You just need to be and just be with yourself and be with the people you love. And yeah, I know that's kind of a privilege, obviously, like we have to keep our lives going. And so, but it's getting rid of all the excess and all the extra and just focusing on like, if you have to keep making money, of course, or keep, your business going, or if you even need to take a day job for a little while and just like, I'm just going to drive Uber for, like 3 months while I just deal with my feelings, like that's okay. And yeah, not letting yourself feel bad. Like you'll never look back on your season of grief and be like, I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd created more. Like you're going to say, I wish I'd
No.
been kinder to myself. Yeah. What do you think about that? Yeah.
Well, And just so if you can't tell, Tricia's also a podcast host, so she may be like asking me questions as well.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm gonna interview you back.
Which is great.
Yeah, tell me about your experience. Yeah.
Well, I want to point out a couple of things, and I'm happy to share my experience as well. But you said getting rid of the nice to have, right? And I think that's really important. Like, what is extra? What, as opposed to what you really love doing? And I had to look under the hood in my business. What is extra? And what's extra was just all these other programs. And I just wanted to focus on like my inner circle program, and extra was doing events every month. Like, let's scale it back. And there's actually a change I'm even being mindful of. Tricia, you're similar to me. I just love in person. I love community. And sure, I have my monthly events, but I'm doing events. Like, I have my 2 retreats for my inner circle clients, but I think I'll do 2 other events. At least there's like an event per quarter. And it's not even a business strategy. It is a mental health strategy. I feel like we are human beings, are meant to be with other people. A second thing you said is we don't need to just do more or grow. And I'm also mindful of the fact, like, am I just working to numb myself so I don't have to really think about my feelings and emotions and the grief? And
yep.
I am so aware of that with myself. I also can't take full credit. I want to go clap back to my therapist for calling me out and helping me heal. I'm like, okay, no, I just really can't do it. I'm using work to numb myself and not really think and feel all of this. And in a spiritual sense, I don't know if you've had this, but when my grandma transitioned, I feel like I have the most beautiful relationship with her now, more so spiritually than I did physically with her. And even lately, in the past 2 weeks, I've been dreaming about her a lot. And it was just like lessons. And I know for you, it was your dad who passed. And I have this sense of like, it's finishing what she couldn't. It's finishing because she didn't have those resources that I have. I've mentioned this so many times because I really acknowledge the privilege that we have. Like, I acknowledge the privilege of how mental health, going to therapy is more accepted as opposed to other generations before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't think either of my parents ever did therapy. I think everyone can benefit from it, but especially going through grief or trauma, you can't navigate it alone. You just can't. Like, you lose all objectivity and you are just stuck in reactivity, and you need somebody that can help pull you back out again. And like, those spirals can go deep.
It can. Yeah. And I've also honored, like, because when someone passes, there's also different type of family dynamics, right? There's okay, wait, we need to do the stuff, right? We need to like figure out the funeral, then there's the money situation. And then sometimes you are the space holder for other people's emotions and their grief when you need someone else to like hold your space and emotions. Yeah. Okay. We're relating because I was that space.
Me. Yeah.
I was a space holder for my own mother because her siblings are going to her, but my mom, because their dad passed away at a young age, my mom essentially was another parent, and she didn't have the space to like, wait, hold on. I know you guys are coming to me for stuff. This is my mother.
Yeah, and I've kind of had a similar thing with my mom as well. And I've always been an emotional person my whole life. Like, I've felt things deeply always. And so when everything was happening with my dad and my family was really struggling because they are not that same way. I mean, I was like kind of jokingly, but kind of saying like, I've been training my entire life. like I know how to handle these deep emotions, and not that anything can prepare you for the loss of a parent or a grandparent or someone that you're insanely close to. Nothing can prepare you for that amount of grief. But yeah, I was cognizant and aware of how to use my emotions and handle my emotions more than other people that may not have experienced that deep of feeling before. And so, yeah, it's like being aware of that. But yeah, you do end up as the deep feeler, end up being the one that ends up having to hold space for everyone else. And that can be a lot. It's too much when you're going through it yourself. Like, I forgot who said this, but they said that when you are working with people, you have to come from a place of a scar and not a wound. Like, you're not in a place to help people when you're still in the wound. it needs to start over. And then you're able to actually speak to it objectively and help others in that situation. And so it's like, if you're still in the wound stage, like it's impossible. It's impossible to really see other people objectively because you're still in it yourself.
You know what? I just really want to emphasize that. I mean, I know we're talking about grief, but I know a lot of listeners are entrepreneurs who do post things online. And I mentioned this in a newsletter that I just posted about yesterday. And we've seemed to glorify people who are very vulnerable, sharing all the things. And then there's this shame and guilt. Well, I should share. And sure, like, what if you have healed and you can technically share? I actually want to remind you, honor yourself if you don't want to share. There are things I don't want to share publicly. Mind you, I do share openly with my own clients. Like I've shared like, okay, this is how I grew up. This is the type of household, but just honoring that. And especially when you're in the healing stage where if you open that wound, then it's like, okay, you have other people's opinions now or what they're sharing affecting how you're going to heal when it should just be you working through that healing, hopefully with a therapist or good friends. I just want to really encourage how therapy is amazing in comparison.
Yes, to therapy. Yes. All day, every day, and especially going through a time like this, like even if you aren't keen on seeking out therapy in your normal life, it's like when you are struggling with grief, it affects everything. And you can't anticipate when it's going to come up. And I think that was the thing that kind of surprised me the most about this level of grief was that, I could just be out at the grocery store and pass my dad's favorite brand of coffee and just break down, and you can't anticipate when these moments are going to happen. And so you have to be prepared, or like you just have to know that that's going to happen, that you have to know that you aren't going to always be in control of your emotions like immediately. And then from that point, you're not able to actually, you're not of use to anybody. Like you literally all you can do is just care for yourself and survive, and so if you're just surviving right now, that is good. That's all you need to do in this moment. And I think that, there's still all this pressure to thrive and share. And I fell into that a little bit last year. And you've helped me a lot with that I feel like I even came to you at one point and said, like, I feel like my audience only reacts a lot when I just bare my soul. When I just share like my deepest things, that's when I tend to get the most, I don't say like attention, but just most response and connection from people, which is wonderful. And that's why I would share. But also it got to the point where I started to feel pressure to like bare my soul on a regular basis. And then that led into people asking me for advice and me saying like, well, I can't, like, I'm just sharing my experience, like you can learn from me and this is what's working for me right now, but I'm not in a place, like I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to like teach you how to deal with your grief. And that was really hard for me. I felt like this like really weird like dichotomy in my business of wanting to share, but feeling like, that I had to share from a specific place, and it still felt very performative sometimes. And that kept me from actually healing and sharing in a way that was healing for me rather than performing and pretending. And
I really loved what you just said right now. Performative, performative sharing as opposed to like what you just intentionally want to share. Or if you don't want to share at all because you're not feeling it. I'm working with 2 D&I consultants. They've been in this podcast. And something I've learned from them is social media was created because they want us online all the time, like using their platform to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really scary because as social human beings, yes, we want to connect, but then we're using their platform.
There's just something, and it's energy. Like it's like I'm very sensitive to energy, and you do not get the same energy even through Zoom, much less through, Instagram or something where you're just seeing this like little snippet of somebody's life. Like that's not a connection. Like you can speak to somebody or you can like maybe like affect them with their words a little bit, but you're not actually building any sort of real like energetic exchange, Yeah, and that's key. I mean, that's like everything in life. That's what we're built for, is that like energy exchange with people that resonate with us. And that's impossible to do through social media. But you can fake
Yeah.
it, but authentically, it's not real. That's not a thing.
Well, and I kind of want to reflect back on one of the episodes I've shared is, are you tracking? So I have to go like business coach right now, but are you tracking where your clients are
Love
coming
it.
from and how many of them are coming from Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, whatever it is? And if you realize they're not so much, then why are you doing that? Like, for example, 85% of my business are referrals and renewals. So I just know I just have to connect with people. And in social media, I'm just like learning to post for fun. And also, I mean, both of us are like in our mid 30s. I'm also cognizant, which is why I think both of us have our own podcast where I'm sorry, but like my whole age group, they all are parents or they're all older and they want to live their life. They want to go on vacations. Our age group and our demographic of people that we serve, they're not online anymore or not as much.
Yeah, and not seeking out, help or connection online. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, my biggest source of income or like clients is from social media. And so it's something that I've had to like learn to lean into, but I'm realizing how much it's not from the posting. The posting is what like attracts followers and like kind of helps people get to know me a little bit, but it's from the DMs. It's from just connecting with real people. And there's only so far that DMs can take you, but as far as just getting actual like relationships started and stuff, it's from the deeper part of that and like using social media purely just as a relationship builder in order to get deeper rather than attention seeking and putting yourself out there. Like that's something I say a lot with my clients is like connection over attention. And I feel like that's what social media is. The only way it should be used at this point is for connection.
Well, yeah, I love what you just said, connection over attention. When I first started my business, I got a lot of people on Facebook when Facebook was really big to get business. And it was over the DMs like, oh, wow, this person's asking me questions. Like, what's your biggest challenge in your career right now in business? What support do you need? And I would give tips and then they'd want to get on a call. It's unfortunate that we just live in a world where people think it's like Amazon Prime, like business will just come to you, not thinking that you
Oh
have to
my
build
God.
relationships. I kind of give the comparison of, do you really want to have your first date with someone like over Zoom? Like, don't you really want to get to connect with them? Actually, my boyfriend and I, we met online through Coffee Meets Bagel and like we just got on the phone quickly to just like connect as opposed to like just sending messages, right?
Yes. I'm a big fan. I will not go on a first date without having spoken on the phone. Need that time, but it's like, but you can't just text and then just be like, oh, I know you now. Like, I need to actually like hear your voice and like hear your natural. Yeah, it's that energy exchange. It's the same thing. It's the closest you can. You have to keep like, getting as close as you can get until you can finally do that in person.
So I know we've like mixed it where we're talking about personal with grief and talking about also just social media performative, but I want to go back to, creating a more aligned business, especially after that grief and that life transition of you now being a single mother. I mean, can you walk us through of how you tried to figure it out of, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I don't want to do. Let me just honor the season I'm at. Like we were saying earlier, it's not meant to be summer all the time because if it is, then like, how's the soil supposed to be ready to plant?
Exactly. And I feel like you get to the point where you are, like you keep trying to grow new petals without noticing all the other ones that are like withering away, And so it's like you need that time to like let the old things die off and to like get back in touch with your branches and your roots. And so that way, everything that you're growing is like coming from your roots and you're not like having to, constantly just kind of be creating new petals around the ones that are dead. Like you want everything to fall off and then create these brand new petals that have come from this deeper place. And and so I think that I can tell a lot of what not to do.
Go ahead. Feel free to share. Let us know your mistakes so we don't have to do it, you know?
Oh, buckle up. I will say that one of the things, so I had a memory come up, like an Instagram memory come up from February, like 11th. My dad passed away on January 29th. And I had an Instagram memory come up from February 11th of me announcing a workshop that I was going to teach. And I think that it was kind of what you were saying, like jumping into work as a way to kind of avoid my feelings. My dad was very complimentary of my work and loved my work. And so I thought that maybe that was kind of a way of like honoring him, was just to like thrive. And so I think I put all this pressure on myself to come back. And then especially moving into ending my marriage and feeling a lot of pressure to obviously now create extra income, that I really feel like I put so much pressure on myself immediately to grow my business and to thrive. And so I was miserable. And like, I couldn't focus. I didn't like the stuff that I was creating. I wasn't serving my clients well. I let things fall off without actually like handling them well. And I think I was just constantly in this state of like new. And maybe it was just this like adrenaline from, wanting to overcome the grief. And I was, out of this like really kind of oppressive marriage. And so I felt this like new sense of freedom. And so that was kind of, and so like I feel like going into the fall, I was just like all the experiences and all the people and creating workshops and groups and really trying to just build in my business. And I didn't like any of it. I started moving into a direction where I was starting to, I was kind of being just really reactive. I had no idea what I really wanted. I was just kind of responding to what everyone else wanted around me. And so I started creating stuff around social media, like Instagram, and being like, well, everyone keeps talking about Instagram, so maybe I'll just become kind of like an Instagram expert for sensitives. But I was talking about Instagram all the time, and I'm like, I hate this. I hate talking about Instagram, and I don't want to like make all of my personal success over other people's social media growth. Like that didn't actually feel aligned with me at all. And so, yeah, I just became really reactive. And didn't actually take any time to get aligned with what I wanted. So I will say the biggest thing that I did right was hire you and
Tricia.
join your mastermind. And I feel like it's the same thing. Like having a business coach is like a therapist for your business, with the right coach. It's like in the same way that you need a therapist for your mental health, you need somebody who has objectivity on your business and who has experience with this and trading and knows what they're talking about to support you and I feel like, yeah, that's something that you've done so beautifully for me, is help get me aligned again. Like you really, really are so deeply focused on what we're saying about those roots. And you helped me stop just like putting petals up and actually said like, well, what's going on with your branches? Like, what's going on with like your roots? And I'm like, oh no, I'm not thinking about those right now. Like I'm just petals. And yeah, so I just appreciate that so much. And it's like, since working with you, I've made huge strides in actually figuring out what I want to do. And now I'm like, from going last fall talking about Instagram, and now this like spring, I'm writing poetry and creating and doing things that I feel like I've always wanted to do and that align with me so deeply. And I've been able to help my clients in such a deeper way. Because I'm coming from my roots, like I'm coming from a place of like deep truth. And that's really hard to do when you're grieving. And then that's also really hard to do when you are just keeping busy and like stuck in the daily grind. Like you have to take that time away. And that's why like your retreats have been life-changing for me, really, because it's actually allowing myself to take that time away, and especially as a mom, I'm constantly doing something, it's like if I'm not working, I'm focused on her and building things for her and, setting up my new place. And it was really easy just to stay busy and caring for everybody else. And that's something that you've really taught me, is how to receive and to actually take the time for myself to yeah, like allow myself to really go where I want to go, and get over that fear and that perfectionism that pops up so frequently, and then the shame. And I think that's a whole other topic we can get into, but that's something that I've really worked on and worked with my clients on is like shame in business, and that's grief. Is just a quick step away from shame, and we can start to feel like go into these shame spirals when we're not able to perform while we're in grief, or we stay extra busy to avoid all of that. So I've kind of gone back and forth between avoiding it and then just delving right into it. And now I feel like I'm finally starting to embrace what those seasons look like and how to make them work for me.
Yeah. And even in the micro concept, I mean, I tell my clients this too, as women, right? It's okay, well, I'm on my period's coming up, or I'm on my period. I don't want to feel like I'm doing anything. And you were saying receive, you've learned to receive. And I joke around with my clients, like, how do you get an orgasm? Well, you have to be completely relaxed and learn to receive and be completely
What?
also unattached to the result of it. And one of the things that we've worked on together is really honoring your schedule and time. We talked about, I mean, you're a single mother, you have your daughter every other week. So I've been telling you, and you finally like, okay, I'm going to do this schedule A, schedule B, where it's like, okay, the weeks that Tricia has Lainey, her daughter, that's when she's not going to be doing as much calls. But the weeks that Lainey's not there, then she's going to be doing calls. So then it meets the need of having a great relationship with your own daughter, as well as having a great relationship and giving the client service that your clients deserve.
Yeah, and like giving time for the different parts of your life. And because when you're totally focused on your business, like that everything else starts to fall around you, and that ends up becoming the people most important to you. That becomes yourself. That becomes your home. That becomes your community, and all the other things that are important to you. And that will feed into your business. When you start to feel bad about all those other things falling and like failing around you, then it's like that feeds into your business also. And so it's like it's good for your business to take care of the other parts of your life, because when you are thriving and happy in all parts of your life, that's when you can actually show up fully for your business and for the people that you serve. I've learned so much of that from you. Yeah.
Well, be careful. And this is probably going to get to a lot of our listeners. Be careful of creating a codependent relationship with your business or career.
Ooh. Ooh, can you say that again?
Yes. Be careful of creating a codependent relationship with your business or career. It is a separate entity of you, right? It's important to create those boundaries. I remember even saying it to my own therapist, where I was like, wow, I realize when I close a sale, I'm like really high, like, ooh, yes. But then like when things are not going my way in my business, that I'm sad. And kind of think about that. Your friends that had that toxic relationship. Oh my God, he was so angry yesterday. Like it got me really like this. Or like, okay, he's happy. And because my partner's happy, I'm happy. Like that's a codependent relationship, right? So making sure you're
Oh
not
yeah.
doing that within your own business. And what's interesting is one of the action items I gave you, Tricia, was on our VIP day was to like do a little Airbnb trip. And this always happens with my clients. They go on vacation and then clients all of a sudden want to work with you because you gave yourself time and space. Can you explain that more, Tricia?
Oh, yes. That was a game changer. So part of being in your mastermind is we have this VIP weekend that we go to the Langham in Pasadena. It was amazing. And it's just a beautiful weekend. And that was one of the things I kind of said with myself, that I was like, well, one of my goals, my personal goals is to like travel more and maybe even like kind of take little trips by myself. And I'd been really wanting to go to this like little town up in the wine country, and had kind of been like, well, I've been really thinking about it. And you were like, get on Airbnb right now and book it. I was like, what? You're like, get on Airbnb. Like, let's figure out a weekend. What's a good weekend for you, and go. I was like, okay. And so booking it right there, and it would have taken me weeks, maybe even months to actually book this trip. And you had me do it right there. And I went the next month, and it was amazing. It was like everything that I wanted it to be. That was when I dedicated one full night to just working out my podcast. And it was like, I was so inspired being out in nature. If I had tried to do this at home, there's no way I would have. And away from distractions. And then I posted about this trip that I'm on. And then it was like that next week I had like 4 discovery calls from people that wanted to work with me after this vacation, because they see that I'm the sort of person that can go on vacation with my business. And people want that energy and want to work with people that have that balance. I mean, nobody aspires to be, for the most part, aspires to be the person who works 24/7. Most of the time when we're wanting to build wealth, it's because we want to have more time. We want to have the wealth in order to be able to like buy our own time back, essentially. And I think we keep waiting to get to some certain level of wealth to like allow ourselves to do that. And we can do that now. We can do that this weekend. You can book a $75 Airbnb for one night, 2 weeks from now, and change your life. Yeah. And so that was a great experience for me, Elaine. I can't even tell you. And now I've been trying to do that more regularly and just taking little trips for myself. And it's like a little gift to myself. And I feel so much better about myself. I feel better about my life. I'm able to create when I'm out there in a way that I'm not able to at home. And then it inspires other people to do the same thing.
You have to think about it. For the past 2 years, we've been like stuck at our homes. Like there are no boundaries. Our home is our personal, right? And it's also where we're working. We're both working. We're both doing this interview in our podcast. So getting out, like I remember having this conversation with my therapist too, telling her, I feel like a lab rat. Like I'm just at home and then I go do yoga. Like you need also spontaneity and variety in your life, like not having it planned. And you're
this is the podcast. I was gonna say, like, this table that I'm working at right now is like covered in my daughter's toys. Like it is not the most conducive work environment in the world. Like it really does take going somewhere that's just fresh. And yeah,
it is. And you stated this earlier, this notion of like, we want to go back to productivity of what we were doing pre-pandemic. It was before we hit record. And then I told Trish, I'm like, what if that's not normal? What if that's not what we're meant to do as humans? What if the pandemic was also created for us to challenge how to actually really live, right? Not just this productivity of doing all the things.
Yeah, I've been kind of saying this from the beginning, but like just saying it was like after the Black Plague came the Renaissance, and it was like, I think it was the same thing. People had this kind of like new lease on life and were embracing art and embracing science and moving away from, like toiling and servitude. And that all kind of happened within the Renaissance. And I have this dream and hope that like we'll be moving into some sort of whatever we can in 2022, some sort of our own renaissance, and that people will take a step back from just producing for productivity's sake and focus on creating and discovering and relationships and what's actually important to us as humans. My therapist is always reminding me, she says, we're human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
And that is, I have to keep that in mind. I have that like written up in my kitchen. Like, I'm a human being, and just by being is where I'm human. It's not in the doing that makes me human. It's in the being.
And I mean, it's unfortunate that society has taught us like push through, keep going, even so much that we've learned in the Olympics the past 2 years, because I know they've been pushed back. So shout out to Simone Biles for like honoring her body and her energy to not pushing through. And I'm actually going through a trauma informed certification with Adria Moses. And there's also this book called like The Body Keeps Score. And I was telling Adria today, right before this call, I'm like, oh, Adria, you got me so much in my feelings and emotions. I'm already there, but like in a heightened sense, because there's so much answers in our own bodies when we listen. It's kind of like, I think back in our 20s, right? You're like, don't date this jackass. And then you date him. And then the sex is awesome. And then you break up and you're like, I knew it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's that context. Or if you have a business, you get on a call with someone, a sales call, and not that they're crazy, but you just realize they're not a great fit. But then you're like, no, I need the money. And then you like convert them and you're like, then something happens, no longer a client. You're like, I knew it. Like our body really knows, or when it's just, you know what, I'm just not feeling doing this event right now. And I'm not saying you have to be drastic, right? So when I used to do the free monthly events and I want to test it, okay, what if it's not monthly? What if it's bi-monthly? Then I went bi-monthly. I'm like, no, it's too much. Okay, let me do quarterly. Okay. I don't want to do it. Like the last free quarterly one I did was end of last year. And then I was like, oh, I think what it is, it's because it's free. And I don't think I want to do that anymore because I don't want to serve beginning entrepreneurs. Instead, I'll refer them to Tricia to work with. I want to work with more established. And I remember even creating this change, and it wasn't overnight. I went to you, Tricia, and asked for feedback. And you're like, actually, it would help me more to be around more established entrepreneurs. I mean, you were on the other side of that and you've seen the whole transition. What did you appreciate about that? And what did you learn about that for yourself?
Oh, I feel like I learned that one, we don't have to do everything. We don't have to work with every single person. I think that, yeah, we get into, especially at the beginning of business, we think that we just need to take any business that's coming in, and maybe at the beginning of business you do, but you have to set a point that at some point you don't. And so I feel like that was really inspiring to see that example from you of how you can gracefully not work with everybody and knowing what you specifically align with yourself and what really resonates with you, and that you don't have to do all the things. Like we get stuck in all these shoulds, like should in our business, and it's like, what do I actually want to do? What is that, like Howard Thurman quote where he says like, don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what needs to come alive, and then go and do that, because what the world needs is people who come alive. And I think that is the thing in business, that it's like people want to work with people who are alive. And I feel like you are so good at that, about constantly finding the life in your business and the life in yourself that you can bring to your business. And and like knowing that you can do that by simplifying, and you can help all of us in a much deeper way because you resonate so much deeper. And I've seen it. Like I feel like I've seen you I mean, like you've always been an amazing coach, but I feel like you've, really been able to harness into our specific group now and what we specifically need, and things like the weekly accountability emails and things that you're able to maybe have space and capacity for that you didn't have before because you were trying to help everybody. And so, I'm selfishly very much appreciate it.
Well, and I mean, I shared openly, and I'm not going to share all the details, but I remember I went through this situation with a client, and I'm like, oh gosh, there's so much I could learn from this. And I felt like shame because I do take pride in my client service. I do. I know that I am amazing, but then when someone is not happy, but then it's also like, okay, what is the root of this? What do I need to change? What do I need to fix? And that's led me to doing those accountability action items that you guys get every week. And it's growing and learning on what you love doing and learning that you don't have to do all the things. And maybe doing all the things is actually keeping you from living the life, right? Like I go do yoga at least 3 times a week. That's amazing.
It's that same thing of being proactive instead of reactive. And it's like it's so easy to allow everyone else to dictate where our business goes, or to allow us to, like, other people to dictate how we feel about our businesses. And I love that you always turn internally and saying, like, what can I control in this? Or like, what is it in me that attracted this situation? Or what is it in me that I can control? Because we can't control other people. All we can fix is ourselves. And so taking that time to turn internally is huge. And that's the only way, like, you could easily just blame the other person and be like, well, he or she was, just a bad client. Or it's so easy to blame everyone else, and instead saying, like, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again for me? And that's huge. So huge. And especially in business, it's easy to blame everyone else. And really it's like, it's down to us and who we are and what we want.
Yeah. I just love how deep and personal you get and just how transparent you get, Tricia. How can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I have my podcast. It is called It's Not Business, It's Personal. And so if you can't tell, that's something I love to talk about. And so that's my goal with the podcast, is just to flip the script on how we talk about business. And we're taught that it's not personal, it's business, and I disagree. And if you disagree too, then please come check it out. And then also I'm on Instagram. So I'm Tricia.Chinnici, and you can get the spelling of my name from Elaine's podcast description.
And Tricia, some people listening are possibly interested in wanting to work with me and join the Color Your Dreams Inner Circle. I mean, you've worked with me for over 6 months. I can't do the math in my head. What would you like to share with folks about what you've enjoyed about working with me, and even your not just business results, but also personal results yourself?
Oh, so I would say, I mean, one of the best things is that I feel like you just attract the best people, like the best people. Like I mean, you are an amazing person. And so I feel like you have just amazing people come into you. And so I can't tell you, like, every single person that I meet through you, I learn from and have gotten to work with in some way. And so just that alone of just the network and the community within your group is wonderful and amazing. It's just wonderful people who are all doing like incredible things, like from, like so purpose driven, and it's just inspiring. I also personally, as a sensitive person, really appreciate the accountability. That's something that I really need, is having somebody who's checking in with me and saying like, hey, we talked about this project. How's it going? As a people pleaser, I tend to work well by pleasing other people. And so it's nice to have somebody who, with no pressure, you do it in such a wonderful way. But for myself, it's just nice to have that little like oomph of, accountability. I need that. And you do it in such a like gentle and caring way. And then also I would just say, like, I've learned so much from you, just in the exercises you do and the way that you do your coaching, but also just learning from you and your business. And it's that work-life balance, which is this ubiquitous, concept that everybody talks about, of like work-life balance. And it's like, I feel like you approach it in such a unique way. And things like figuring out like our energetic cadence for the week, and things that I had never even thought to do that have really really changed my life, really changed the way that I look at my personal time versus my work time, and how I can combine those things. Like when you give us business or like things to work on, and we're setting goals, and we're not just talking about like business goals and like, okay, we're going to reach out to 3 people about this project this week, but we're also saying like, okay, so you're going to, like, I think art is very important to you. And you're like, okay, so let's set it that you're going to create something every day. Like you're going to do some sort of form of art every day, and just making that a priority as well as the things in my business is just a game changer. Like I feel so much happier and more able to show up in my business, because I'm also taking care of my life and where I want to go in that way too. And so that's a very long-winded answer to say, you do not hesitate to join this group. Like, it's a really a game changer. And but not to mention that I've improved my sales. Like, I made back what I pay for this group like right away. And so it really has been, it's paid for itself already, and then continues to. And so, thank you.
No, I mean, thank you. Like you were saying, Tricia, I just love every single human, because we have women, non-binary folks in the Color Dreams Inner Circle. And yes, I'm a business coach, but it's really about creating that sustainable life. Because when we die, we're not going to be thinking, oh, I could have sent that one email. It's like, no, for you, Tricia, it's like you spending time with Lainey, right? Or, I mean, it's interesting for me. It's like, yes, being with the people I love, like my boyfriend and family, but also like just being in nature, like being in Mammoth. Oh, I can't wait to be in Mammoth again. And summer is about to come.
Jealous. But it's like coming from that deeper place of building your legacy. Like, I feel like so many coaches are just about like leads and like hot leads and how to close sales and convert, and where, I mean, you are knowledgeable in that, but it comes from such a deeper place of like service and creating a business that like means something and really like changes people's lives. And that resonates with me so much more than like launch funnels and sales funnels and, like all of these things that like just become strategy that you like, we all know, like we know generally how to make sales. You need to just reach out to people and ask them if they want your service. Like that's like, we all know generally how to do sales, but it's the deeper part that like to give you the confidence to keep doing that is what you need. And that's what I feel like you provide in spades.
Oh, Tricia. Well, if you guys want to join the inner circle, schedule that call with me at elainelu.com/call. So it's CALL. And then, Tricia, I always love ending my podcast episodes with two things. One, what is a reflective question that our Call Your Dreams community could ask themselves? And two, what's an action item?
Ooh, okay. I love this. So for a reflective question, I would say, that's a really good one. Okay, so something that I ask myself regularly is if there was no obstacles or no limits, if everything would just go my way, where would I want to be in 5 years, or even 1 year, or even 90 days from now? But allowing myself to dream without obstacles. And so setting it like 5 years is usually where I go, but if that seems too far off and you're just in this, like, I just need to get through the next month, then it's kind of like in my dream world, where would I end up in a month? And so I feel like that's a really good reflective question just to think on and to help kind of reprioritize if you feel like there's a lot of extra stuff going on right now that you're not really sure where to go, then to really get back to where you actually picture yourself and in your dream life and allowing yourself to dream that. So that's the reflective question. And then what was the second thing? Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it might be the same thing, but if you have another one, that's great. What is an action item?
Ooh, okay. And then an action item is, okay, so I guess we can meld those together. And so the action item would be to spend time in meditation on that and journal on that. And so, which is something that hopefully we can start doing every day. But if you can, like, actually giving yourself the time to feel in your gut where you actually want to go and not write down all the shoulds. Where do you actually want to be? And then, and then write it down, because there's a lot of power in actually physically writing things and putting your goals out into the world. Even if you don't share it, putting it on paper makes it seem more tangible.
Yeah. Stop shooting yourself, right? Stop shooting yourself everywhere. And there is power when you're doing pen to paper, because unfortunately our smartphones and our computers can be very distracting to, well, hold on, I want to go buy some shoes because there's a sale on Nordstrom Rack right now, or like, someone just texted me. Yeah. So I got a text, but pen and paper, it allows yourself to be completely honest. Like I just did a meditation earlier today. It was for my trauma-informed certification. AJ was like, okay, how are you feeling? Like, I don't feel good. And I don't want to say I don't feel good, but it's just like, you know what? I just don't feel good right now. Like, that's where I'm at, because like, I'm doing some like deep healing and therapy right now, but it's honoring that. And also you don't need to do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's just how you feel, you feel.
Oh my God.
And also I want to share this too. There's also this toxic positivity, it's like, okay, I'm feeling angry. What do I need to just like move that and change this emotion to go somewhere else? I actually want to encourage you, go be angry, yell at a pillow. Like that's how you feel. There's a reason why there's just emotions there, but I just hate how sometimes people like just change it right away.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's so important. I was actually going to see if this is okay with you, if I could read a piece of writing. Would that be?
Oh, yes. You get Tricia holistically. Please share it.
Would that be okay? Yeah.
Yes, this is a great way to end. Go.
Yay. Okay. This is a piece of writing that I wrote. So it's a really random thing when I tell people I write business poetry, and everyone's like, what? And so this is a piece that I wrote for my podcast. It's from the first episode, and it's called Brave. It says, true bravery isn't doing a huge thing once, although that is also very brave. It's doing the small, hard things, choosing something different, getting uncomfortable over and over and over. Being brave is creating something even when you feel bad at it, then making another one and another one. Bad and good, good and bad, over and over and over. The audacity to keep going, and keep creating. Being brave is talking about your project, even if it's not finished and will never be perfect. It's talking about it again in even bigger rooms. It's saying, this is who I am, and this is what I can do, over and over and over. That trust that the right people will be listening. But being brave isn't just about doing. It's about undoing. Being brave is moving on from the thing you said you'd do, or the person you said you'd be, or the life you said you'd live, when it's no longer working for you, when you've stopped being able to dream, when you've asked yourself, who am I and what do I want? And you can no longer answer. It's finding that answer again. It's brave to choose not to suffer. It is brave to choose to disappoint others. It is brave to choose you. It is brave to choose new. One small decision at a time, over and over and over. It gets easier, I promise. And one day you'll look up at this life you chose, this life that you can't believe you're getting to live, this life that you created for yourself, bit by bit, piece by piece, little decisions by little decisions, over and over and over. And you'll think, wow, I'm brave.
So I hope you take Tricia's action step and journal about what came out for that poetry. Thank you, Tricia, for sharing your gifts, for being brave, talking about grief, burnout, being aligned. And if you love Tricia, just go check out her podcast on It's Not Business, It's Personal. Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you so much for this, Elaine. Thank you for everything you do for me. And I'm just so lucky to know you.
Oh, I love you.
And lucky for this podcast. Oh, everyone listen to them all. Subscribe, leave all the reviews because she's the
best. Love you, Tricia.
Love you. Thank you.
Ooh, legacy maker. I hope what you took away from this episode is that abundance is more than just doing. It's more than just making money. It's about being our best version of ourselves. And a huge thing that I focus on with clients like Tricia is creating a sustainable lifestyle and future. So if you are feeling unaligned with your current life and career or business, I would love to invite you to schedule a complimentary 30-minute legacy business and career review, where you will receive 3 action items towards your personal and professional goals. And hey, if it's a great fit to continue working together, great. I'll share with you how it looks like to work together. And if it's not a great fit, great. I'll refer you to other resources and people because integrity is one of my top values. So to schedule that complimentary 30-minute legacy business and career review, go to elainelu.com/call. That's CALL. And if you want to learn more about the Call Your Dreams Inner Circle program that Tricia is a part of, it's a 12-month hybrid one-to-one and group coaching program for established entrepreneurs, and you receive 2 retreats. Go to elainelu.com/inner circle. Legacy Maker, if you love this Call Your Dreams episode, we would love it if you can leave a rating and review on Apple, so more women of color and allies can benefit too. And if you have 1 or 2 friends that would get so much from this particular episode, please share. The intention behind the Call Your Dreams podcast was to contribute and give back to our people. All right. We'll see you next Thursday for our newest Call Your Dreams episode. And don't forget to color your dreams to create your legacy.